Welcome back to Fractor Pro's podcast. Last week, we continued our four-part client strategy and customer success series with the topic of successful onboarding. If you're just joining us, we're with Henderson, client strategy and customer success guru, as she shares her insights on this week's topic, post-go live support and resources. Welcome back, Ann.
Thanks, Brian. So good to be back.
Ann, we started this series with you discussing getting a contract signed not being the only opportunity for revenue, but it's also the commitment of company resources to support a client over what we hope is a long-term engagement. You've also shared your insights on how to engage what's in and not in the contract, project scope and required resources, and how to handle change management. And last, and certainly not least, you've shared some really great information on setting expectations early and often, this crucial piece not being a one and done action. The first two sessions, sales and then onboarding, have been successful with our viewers reaching out to you directly with questions, and I love that. One was around the importance of communication and transparency. So before we jump into this week's topic on a post-go live support and resources, could you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, so the specific question was kind of, where do I see people falling short with transparent communication? And I think the biggest thing is humans don't want to let other people down. We just don't. It's human nature. We hate doing it. And it is so easy to communicate the good news. We got we're ready for testing. We're ready for go live. We got the first milestone met. So fun to communicate that. When you have not so good news to communicate, it's hard. And I think people tend to either sugarcoat it or maybe try to make that hard conversation easier by maybe even promising things they can't deliver on. And it just makes the whole thing, you're just kicking the can down the road at that point and making the next conversation harder, and kind of compounding bad news. So I think the biggest thing is to really remember when you're thinking about communication, the transparency is what builds trust. And if you can work with your client to let them know, I know this isn't the news you were hoping for. It certainly isn't what I was hoping for either, but we need to make business decisions based off of this information we now have. Let's move forward. You are building trust with that client.
Thanks for that nugget, Ann. And it is important to build trust because even when you're delivering the bad news, they know you're going to be truthful. And whatever it is, I mean, I know I love good news, but I hate having to have the conversation about bad news. It's awkward, it's uncomfortable, and particularly if the other person gets upset because they've communicated deadlines or delivery or something along those lines internal to their own organization. Now they have to go back and say, hey, just kidding, we now have this new timeline, right? So
right. Yeah. That's no fun for anyone.
No fun at all. So again, thanks for that. This week, we're going to get into a little bit of a different topic, which I'm super excited about. But rather than me talk about it, what do you have in store for us this week?
Yeah. So this week, I wanted to talk about support and resources that you're applying for your client post go live. And I think the key things to remember are, again, our goal is a long and profitable relationship with our clients. We've signed a contract. We've invested resources to get them live. They are now live, which is great news. Revenue is being recognized. But there are commitments that you need to make to your client to make that relationship run smoothly. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about essentially, support resources in particular. What are the things that you're providing to clients? We'll save kind of relationship and kind of ongoing relationship engagement for our next week's conversation. And this week, I really want to focus on more of the support resources and tech support or help center part of the world.
Great.
So the key things to remember, and there's a couple of critical pieces when you're considering what your support model is going to look like. On one hand, you could just provide a digital experience. Mm-hmm. Here's a help center, have at it. Go untangle your problems there. Maybe you have an email that people can email in and you'll get back to them. Maybe you have, a chatbot that is driven by AI, but doesn't quite fully speak native English yet.
Right.
You don't know, what those options are, but there are like digital options that you could provide. Kind of at the other end of the spectrum is full white glove service. Somebody picks up a phone, somebody travels on site to, sit with the user and make sure that they know exactly what they're doing. Then there's also like a gamut of things you can do in between. And so as a company, it's really important to understand how that plays into your brand. Are you selling a white glove experience, but giving them a digital tech support? Or are you, a pretty snappy, easy to use system, but you've invested in a ton of people who are going to answer a call and isn't needed? So think about, the service you're providing, the ease of the technology you've implemented, kind of the size and scope of who you're engaged with, and land on where you're going to be brand-wise in between full digital experience and white glove service. So to start with, kind of thinking through those, I did want to talk about tech support, because I think for maybe the early part of my career, I kind of saw tech support as like a necessary evil. Like I didn't want to answer the phone. If somebody had an issue, like you don't know, that phone rings and you pick up the phone and you have no idea what it is that they're going to be like, here's what I'm having an issue with. And you want to help them resolve it. But I've had roles where I've managed tech support teams, and I feel like as a manager, you should always be doing what you're asking your people to do. And so I would answer phones. And what I learned is that tech support is such an overlooked opportunity for a company. And tech support really, I think over the last 5 years has kind of evolved from like a phone-based or phone or email-based model to much more of like a chat-based, even if it's a person who's chatting or answering questions. There is more of a digital mode. I don't think many consumers actually at this point or clients particularly enjoy picking up the phone. Just generally, I don't think people love that. Stereotypically, they're your older customers who like to pick up the phone and get a person on there. Younger people are like, can I just text you? Yep. Please don't make me talk to you. But tech support gets all kinds of good info on the client experience. And, it's a really good opportunity to provide an experience that enhances your brand based on their opportunity. If you are a frustrated user and you can't figure out how to do something and you reach out to the support team and they answer your question, in whatever way, format, text, chat, email, phone, they answer your question and you're smooth, oh, great, resolved, I'm on my way. Huge opportunity to boost that person's feeling about your brand. You just turned a frustrating situation into a better situation. Transparently, or I guess on the other end of the spectrum, if somebody is frustrated and using something or can't figure it out or is banging their head against the wall and they email you and you don't get back to them for 6 weeks, how frustrating is that?
Right.
How frustrating is that experience to be like, well, I did care about it, but I've moved on. I've solved that problem with something else that is not you or your product. Or I banged my head against the desk and figured it out myself, but now I feel like you don't care about me as a user. So, providing a really good experience to your users when they are frustrated is an opportunity to really enhance your brand.
In terms of the tech support, I have a question around the use of tools and technology. So what's your perspective on the tech support having technology and tools at their fingertips in order to help them be successful, as well as you being successful with your brand and the client being successful at, engaging your technology or engaging your service?
Yeah. I mean, I think that tech support is such a good opportunity to mine for the data or mine data for the client experience. That team is going to sense a disruption in the force before anybody else. because they're going to start seeing an uptick in tickets or in inquiries or in call, their world is going to be maybe one of the first that is impacted if things start to go awry. If there's a bug, if there's downtime, if there's anything that's happening that is affecting the client experience, tech support is probably going to hear about it pretty quickly. Maybe before the relationship managers, people are going to pick up the phone or email or, submit inquiries. So setting up a really robust way to capture that information and turn it into useful data is unbelievably helpful. People use Salesforce to capture their tickets. I think I've used Jira, I've used Salesforce. I used another one that I can't remember the name, and they got acquired by somebody else, but it was really cool because people could take screenshots and doodle on it. Super interesting to get inquiries from clients about what their experience was. But the thing that became really powerful is when we would start making information out of those tickets, not just like, yes, opened and closed, and we resolved it in X number of hours, but looking at and categorizing those tickets for how were they resolved? Was it training? Was it a bug? Was it, was it just a thing that they didn't know how to do? And then taking those tickets and bucketing them and reflecting them back to the internal teams at your company is where you can really take information and do something with it. So I closed out, 20% of my tickets this month by training people on how to use the system. Hey, UX team, let's go through those tickets. I have to continually show people where a button is. Can we move it? Can we make it bigger? Can we make it flash? Can we make it giant and red? How can we make this so that I don't get calls about it, that, it becomes a more seamless experience? Or, hey, training team, in this video you created, we missed a step. People seem to miss like getting from point C to point D. They're good before and they're good after, but that step's missed. Can we adjust the videos that we've created? Look for opportunities to enhance the experience going forward. Don't just open and close your tickets, like really look at opportunities coming out of them. And that's where having a really solid tool to help mine that data becomes useful.
Fantastic. With the data coming in, I wanted to add another kind of leg to that. With the data that's coming in, have you ever used it as okay, this seems like this is growing in severity. We need to get a kind of a proactive communication out to the clients. How do you, is that something you've done, and what does that approach look like?
Yeah. Yes. Sometimes after releases you can release bugs, you can test for so many things, but you can't test every last scenario. So often, when I run into a release that has introduced something new that we didn't see in any of our testing, but now it's live and it's out there, having the ability to communicate out proactively, either, hey, this is a bug, we're working on fixing it, hold please, well, we're on it, we know, is one path. Even more powerful if, hey, we introduced something, we know it's not ideal, we're working on it, here's the workaround, here's what you can do to get yourself untangled. But being proactive to really like email your user list or put up if you have like a client portal, or some sort of messaging system when people log in that can say something to them around the lines of, news and updates.
Sure.
Putting that information out to them proactively is going to help them avoid the frustrating scenario rather than running into it, getting frustrated, reaching out, and then being like, oh, you already knew about this? Well, that's right. That's no fun. So, being proactive when you start seeing bugs, or big issues. The other scenario where that can be really helpful is if you have third-party integrations with other vendors, and they're having downtime that's not you. Protect your brand. Communicate to your clients and protect your brand. Hey, this, we have this integration, they are down, we are working with them on a resolution, just so you know, here's the updates, and be proactive with that as well. When you integrate with other companies to do something critical for your flow, you run the risk of their downtime or their issues as well.
Absolutely. And I think it's also important that, when you're communicating, when it is a third party provider to you, that's impacting your clients or impacting your customers, I think it's also important that, how you communicate the message out is done very much in a non-blaming, really kind of negative way as much as you can help it. Because, that even though you're trying to protect your brand, your approach, I think, to the communication based on your third party actions, good or bad, doesn't matter, is going to impact, and you mentioned it earlier, but it's going to impact your brand, right? Because people,
or your choice that you selected them to work with, but you want them to remain a trusted vendor as well.
Right.
And from an empathy perspective, that company is scrambling too. So you don't want to make their world harder than it needs to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As you're kind of talking about this kind of white glove service, is there, and I think this leads into maybe the next topic, in and around, kind of the self-service development of a help center. How talk a little bit about that, but then how can you give, if you can, that white glove service in that help center, in that self-service model, if it's at all possible?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's where some of the tools, the support tools, have come such a long way in making that experience better. Of course, you could have like a static manual. And I think, back in the olden days, it would be a printed manual that you might update once a year. People could thumb through it and look at what they needed. But right now, the tools are so amazing, and you can kind of publish your content real time. So, your support team should be constantly writing articles. The product team should, of course, have, the kind of feature overviews, new features, how features work. You should have a good library of the positive, here's how everything works. Your tech support team and your product team's kind of knowledge manuals should be tied together and integrate really well. And they should constantly be updating. And in a scenario where you have a self-service help center, that typing in a question should start auto-populating content from those resources, so that, I'm having trouble with login, and it starts keying in login, and it's, both how to log in, how to reset your password, how to, what the options are for multi-factor authentication, getting all of the content that could be associated with a login experience, so that you're not asking the user necessarily to dive into a huge amount of content, but you are giving them some articles that maybe dive in a little bit more deeply to, okay, what part of login is tripping you up? And so that, self-service, I think, has come a long way with the automation and kind of searchability and of a lot of the tools that are out there. I have been really impressed with kind of Salesforce, their Community Force product, Jira, and their tie-in with Confluence has been really helpful as well, because it kind of democratizes the ability to put out current info quickly to your clients.
Got it.
Having said that, you still need some level of making sure that somebody is watching that content so that it's professional and helpful and, kind of within the tone and voice of what you want to have out there. There needs to be some level of review, but getting information out quickly is really helpful.
That's fantastic. Then are there other ways you can use the help center? So sometimes, you have a release, it's got a laundry list of features that's going with it. And sometimes you might have, releases, multiple times should that need to occur. You've also got new features that you want to generate some excitement around. So can you talk about how the help center can help you there?
Yes, it should absolutely be an excitement generator too, right? I always love when I log in and I get information about, we're going to be doing an update on this day at this time. even if it's your user experience might be warned, like, I'm excited. Ooh, you guys are doing something new and exciting. I want to know more. So communicating what's coming, not only the logistics of uptime, downtime, hopefully no downtime, but if there is any anticipated, but also what's coming. Release notes are so fun. What are the new features? What are the new bugs that are or not new bugs? Don't introduce new bugs. But what are the bugs that are getting resolved? What are the new resolutions that are in there? Release notes should be kind of exciting. And I think the idea and the ability to really record video tutorials right now can make it even more exciting than just kind of static laundry list of content, maybe with some screenshots. It's awesome to have that for reference, but being able to do little video blurbs to show what's coming is always super exciting as well. And there's so many good and easy tools that you can use right now to make the Help Center just a more interactive experience through video, through, screenshots and content. But really making sure that you're kind of making it making that digital experience exciting is going to help your clients be excited about what's coming down the pipeline.
Absolutely. Are you, as you were talking there, it sounds like that you're really taking a step back and really thinking about your end user and, about their learning style. So is that something that's a front of mind for you?
It is. I mean, I think that's kind of the key thing to think about as part of your brand is, who are your users? Are you going after young, tech savvy users? Do you work in an industry that maybe has, people who aren't as tech savvy, but don't need to be for their job, but they're using your product to make their jobs easier, better, faster? Think about who your end user is, and your marketing team is doing that as part of the sales target, and trying to look at the target market. Know who your users are, and kind of tailor to them. What is it that they're going to look for? How are they going to feel most supported? Generally, I think you look at users or learners who, some learners are great at reading, some learners are great at seeing, some learners are great at doing and then learning. So to the extent that you can offer information in multiple ways, gives that user the opportunity to learn how they acquire knowledge best.
Absolutely. You introduced a point here around sounds like a good partnership with marketing. And just a bit ago, you were talking about, for your user materials, being a nice partnership between, the support team and product, and, maybe perhaps other areas of operation, really being engaged in the development of those materials to make sure that what gets then presented to the end user is professional, clear, hopefully concise, and actually steps them through what they need to do, as opposed to kind of assuming. So let's touch on the marketing piece. So you've introduced that topic. So how do you connect the tech team, your support team, your resources to marketing? And what does that look like?
Yeah. So your Help Center really, it's such an opportunity to provide thought leadership. It could be pretty brass tacks and boring. It could be. But if you're building it out, and you're looking at ways to keep your users engaged, your marketing team is continually coming up with thought leadership in the industry to go after new clients, new targets. Continually having a conversation with marketing and sales about how to re-swizzle or reuse that information in the Help Center for current clients is it's such a great opportunity to continue that kind of ongoing thought leadership, value add component for your current clients that are that's probably part of what dazzled them to sign up for your company, was how thoughtful you were and how much you knew about the market and how much you knew about industry trends. And you still know that. So keep telling them all this good information that you have and that you've pulled together, and the research you're doing, or the white papers, or the things that you can kind of do to keep people engaged in the industry.
Sure. You're talking about making clients like, thought leaders. Is it your recommendation that you have, a couple of different clients? What does that, when you're going after a client to bring them in as a thought leader, they're going to have a voice, in the development perhaps of your product, of your service. And I know we'll talk about that next week, but what does that approach look like?
Yeah. So, it goes kind of both ways. You're providing thought leadership out to your clients, right? Through communication pieces, through the help center, through probably emails, email campaigns. But finding champions at your clients, and then using those opportunities and the people who are, excited about what you're doing, to invite them to participate in white papers, or to provide quotes for press releases, or to be somebody interviewed for an industry article, or to join you for a speaking engagement at a industry conference. You're really helping kind of position your client as a thought leader in the industry. You're positioning this person well, I think, for the things that they may want to accomplish personally and professionally, as a person in the industry. But you're also really, you are building up your brand by making sure that you've got the idea of, hey, I've got clients who enjoy using us and who will talk about how we're solving their problems, which is kind of the marketing gold out there.
Yeah. So, Anne, you've talked about the importance of tech support, the help center, the different types of service, where it be self-service only, or the complete white glove treatment, and then how product and marketing and everyone works together. As a final point, for those that are listening to your insights and they want to take something away, and they're like, let me go back to my organization and look at X to see if I have the right support process in place, what would you recommend that they do first?
Yeah. So for the people who've made it to the end, thank you for sticking in there so long with us. The first thing I do, if you have established systems right now, I would say pick a couple of select clients. Pick ideal clients, pick non-ideal clients, pick clients who are struggling, pick clients who are doing great. Kind of get a cross section and ask them.
That's going to be
what's working and what's not working.
Yeah. And you've got to be willing to hear the good and the bad, because you're going to hear it, right?
Totally. Give them the opportunity to tell you. I mean, if you're looking for ways to improve, they're the ones who are going to tell you, here's what we need. It doesn't mean you need to do everything that they tell you, but you are gathering data points to inform your strategy. And if you already have a client base, they are the best place to go to get the information to inform your strategy.
Yeah. And if they've been giving feedback all along, if you have a feedback capture tool as part of your system, or you're doing that regular capture, I think it might be helpful to be like, this is what you've already told us. This is where it fits on the roadmap, or this is what we're going to do or not do, or, whatever that looks like. But then making sure that you really acknowledge that you've been listening to them all along, so that they don't come back and the first words out of their mouth was, I gave you this comment a year ago, or I gave you this comment 6 weeks ago, because that's going to damage your relationship. So
yeah. I mean, going into those conversations with a summary of, hey, here's the feedback you've provided, here's what we've done with it, these are the things we know are still hot buttons. Just get it all out on the table, and then reiterate. And today I'm looking for feedback on X, because if you're asking about kind of support methodologies, and they want to talk about feature functionality, those are two separate conversations. So you do
Right.
have to kind of really make sure that they're prepared for the right conversation,
Right.
or be prepared to be like, oh, give it to me, and then I will take that to the product team.
Yeah.
Set up some follow-up conversation.
Yeah. Has it been useful in your past to just facilitate conversation between the client and product directly rather than being the middle person?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think it's so fun when you have kind of client and product talking together, and and there's like oh, here's the thing we fixed, and the client's so excited. Thank you for hearing our feedback. That's amazing.
Right.
Always fun. But also inviting the client to provide feedback to the product team, either in roundtable format or just looking at kind of wireframes. This is the pain point we've heard. Does this solve this? Does this solve what you think you are, the problem, before you've invested in code or validating that experience ahead of time is going to dial things in,
Right.
before you've really even launched. So that's always a helpful feedback loop.
Yeah. There's always so many options, it feels like, to gather information, share information. There's just so many, and I think sometimes organizations miss those and create missed opportunities, and then lose customers,
Mhm.
damage their brand unintentionally just because they're not thinking about all the possibilities, or they don't want to engage all the possibilities. And sometimes it's difficult to do that because there's so many. But I think from a strategy standpoint, it's important that you select the right ones. And like you've been talking about this episode and in prior episodes, there are so many ways that you can help your clients from the very beginning, that first contact. And now we've got them live, and we're supporting them along the way, and there's so much that can be done. And I think even to your earlier point, I didn't really think about the tech support and the support resources being this involved, this engaged in the success of the client, the success of your organization. They are necessary if you expect to have, I think from my perspective, good customer service, a good
Right.
response to your brand. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. They aren't just a cost center.
They are not. And I've had in my past, I've sat in front of folks that it's like you're defending why they're a profit center and not
Oh,
a
yeah.
cost center.
Right.
So which is, and when you're talking about all these things that you've talked about today and in prior episodes, it certainly brings things to light. It just sometimes it's a reprogramming of people
Right.
thinking differently. So
Right. Right.
yeah. So thank you, Anne. I love your insights, and I know our listeners do too, seeing the value and beginning to implement change inside their own organizations. This concludes today's episode on post-go live support and resources as another crucial point in client strategy and customer success. Next week, we will wrap up this series with relationships and client renewal, holding steady or increasing your annual recurring revenue. Be sure to tune in for more valuable insights and practical strategies to unlock efficiency and unleash growth. Again, I am Brian DeShazer, your host and founder of FractPro, where we work with you to develop flexible and scalable solutions without the need for a full-time commitment. Reach out with any questions about the services we offer. And if you have any suggestions on topics, please don't hesitate to share them. And if you have any questions for Anne, reach out to her directly through her LinkedIn. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye. Thank you.